Greetings, Andy here again, and this video is the second part of my roundup of new releases I bought during June. So in the first episode of this I looked at 6 albums, and now I'm going to do the remaining 5. Some of these came quite late, so I haven't listened to them maybe as much as the earlier ones, but I'm going to start this one. This is not something I would have thought of buying, but I heard one track on the radio and which I really liked, and I sort of checked it out, and I absolutely love the artwork. There's just something about it which I thought, I've got to get that. And it's Linda Thompson and her new album, Proxy Music. You've got to laugh, and it was a real laugh out loud moment with her there covering the Roxy Music one, and I'm sure they were very happy to have her do that, because it's just brilliant. So it says Linda Thompson, friends and family sing her songs. So Linda Thompson obviously was married, well, only for actually 10 years, from 72 to 82 apparently, but to Richard Thompson, the famous folk guitarist and singer, Fairport Convention and all that. And she suffers from, I'm going to read this because I can't remember what it's called. She suffers from a medical condition called spasmodic dysphonia. I don't know what it is, but apparently it means she can't sing any longer. Now, having said that, she does appear on the credit on one of the songs with some of the others, so she's not full singing. And it's some great songs. I mean, obviously it's essentially folk, but it's not it's not foot-stamping and ear-bending folk. And on here she, let me check my notes, because lots of names I don't know. So it's basically, as it said, friends and family. So 2 of her children from her marriage with Richard Thompson, so Teddy and Cammy are 2 of those children, plus son-in-law James Wellborn and grandson Zach Hobbs, who apparently is the son, not of those, but the eldest daughter. So they're heavily involved on most of the tracks in one way or another. Teddy actually produces the whole album as well. And even Richard Thompson appears in the credits on a couple of tracks in here, and there's lots of guest vocalists. So just to name a few: Martha and Rufus Wainwright, the Proclaimers, the Unthanks, and John Grant. And John Grant appears on it's brilliant. The track is actually called, the song is John Grant, and it's sung by John Grant, and he had a hand in the writing of it as well. Apparently they're great friends, and she wanted to write a song about their friendship. So there you go. And it is lovely. I mean, the musicianship's very good. Obviously, it's all in the family, and and you've got the Wainwrights in there as well. So all the scions of the folk, of a folk family. I just love that artwork, and it comes with, amongst other things, it has a download code as well. And this version of it. It comes with a sign, it's the full one, and it's signed by Linda. So I'm not going to put it on my wall, obviously, but it's brilliant. I just, such a great idea to call it Proxy Music and to do that cover. I just can't get over that. And it's just a black vinyl single album, and there's I think it's 12 tracks on each. Well, not on each side, 6 tracks on each side.
John Grant took my heart away to Reykjavik. I hope he takes care of it. Upsets rain a bit. We had tea at Proto. We like cake and it shows a moment.
We talked about John Grant. And we just heard a bit of John Grant, and then more John Grant, because He's also released his solo album, his 6th studio album, in June, and it is called The Art of the Lie. And I think, you know, with elections going on everywhere and politicians lying out of their arseholes, left and right, it's rather appropriate, I think. So, you know, this album it's quite synth heavy. I mean, he likes the synth, does John, doesn't he? But this is quite synth heavy. It's much less folky than some of his earlier work. And it's quite cinematic in places. It's quite big, but also it gets quite dense and dark in places as well. And a number of the songs sort of reflect, it's quite autobiographical, I think, and some of the songs reflect on his relationship with his parents. And, you know, so for example, there's a song called Father, there's one called Mother and Son, and then another one called Daddy. And, you know, it's John Grant. You know, I like John Grant, and actually I find this sort of slightly more musical, quite uplifting, to be honest. It's you know, it's less folky than his earlier stuff, as I say, and it's quite. And even though I'm not a massive, you know, I don't like 80s synth pop, but I like synths where it's appropriate, and this really works very well, I think. And it's another, you know, nicely presented, good photography. Shiny card, and it's very resplendent. It's a double, not masses of tracks actually. How many tracks are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 tracks on a double, so I haven't checked the time of it all. I think it's sort of slightly too much for a single, and nicely spread, nice wide grooves on here. So that's John Grant, that's number 2, and
you're like the ocean, you're like the waves crashing on the beach that morning. Daddy, you are majestic. Would you betray me?
My number 3 is some prog from Norway, and it's the new album by Airbag called The Century of the Self. So Airbag, neo-prog, well, described as neo-prog, I just think of them as prog, band from Oslo. This is their 6th studio album. I think I've got 4 or 5 have I got? I think I'm missing one. I really like them. I think they're one of the best of the sort of modern prog bands. They're quite. I think they're often referred to as being quite like Pink Floyd, and you know, there's not masses on here which really reminds me of Pink Floyd, to be fair. But the guitarist, who is called Bjorn Rees, his style of playing is reminiscent of David Gilmour, and I think that's where you get the sort of the style, the link for. But they're very much their own band. They sing in, you know, it's all in English. They just, you know, they produce good music. It's, you know, typical prog. They're all quite long tracks. The opening track is over 10 minutes, and the closing track is exactly 15 minutes long. Just so there's just 5. The total time is 47 minutes, so they've just squeezed it. So no broad grooves on this one, quite tight grooves. They've just squeezed it onto a single LP, and it's on red and whoops, held that the wrong way around. Red and black splatter. I really like this LP. I've only listened to it a couple of times, to be honest. It came quite late, but you know, definitely up there with their other albums. So I think quite a lot of people know Airbag, and this is a good one.
And feel again.
So we come to my fourth album. This is one of the discoveries. So, you know, a band I hadn't heard of before. Well, I don't think I'd heard of them. I think I was mixing them with another band, and it's a band called Goat Girl, and the album is called, it's difficult to read here, Below the Waist, and waist is spelled W-A-S-T-E. And Goat Girl are they're a post-punk band, and they sort of are, but they're more melodic than typically typical post-punk. They're a girl band. Don't mean that in the poppy sense. They're just all girl. They started out as a 4-piece, and I think they're now a 3-piece from London. And nominally they're sort of guitar, singer, bassist, drummer, but there's also quite a lot of sort of there's some there's some synths in there, there's some strings in there. Quite a lot of the guitar is acoustic, and whilst now and then it can get a bit shouty, not that often. It's much gentler. Another it's a single LP. With loads of tracks which I'll come to, but nicely presented. The artwork is very dark, so it's meant to sort of about gunge and waste and pollution and stuff. What can I say? It's their third LP. As I say, I haven't heard any of their stuff before. There's another one where I heard a track on the radio and thought, well, that sounds quite good, and I streamed a few tracks and liked it, so thought I'd get it and check it out. There are masses of tracks on here. You can see the list down there. There's 16 tracks on a single LP. I mean, to be fair, a couple of them are sort of sub 1 minute instrumental ditties, which, to be honest, don't really add anything to the album. They sort of don't really contribute to it, so a bit unnecessary, really. But so the songs are all obviously generally quite short, though there's the odd one out of 4 or 5 minutes, but they're generally 2 or 3 minutes long. And it's a nice album. It flows nicely. Obviously, the theme is pollution and all things related. So a nice discovery. And
Sleep was meant for yesterday. Now it all just seems the same. We fucked it all away. And one night's to blame.
And my last one is this is really left field because it's completely outside what I would normally buy. And I've mentioned before that I have this subscription with Rough Trade, their sort of Rough Trade club. And basically, I get, in simple terms, I give them 30 quid a month, or they take 30 quid a month, and I get whatever is their album of the month. And I get free postage on anything else I buy. And it's nearly always something which, I wouldn't necessarily have thought of. I've only had one where I've sent it back because it was just dreadful. This isn't something I would have gone and bought, but it's interesting and I like it. I'm surprised I like it. And it's by an artist called Peggy Gou. And it's called I Hear You. Now, Peggy Gou is a Korean DJ based out of Berlin. So so where did that one come from? And she plays. It's really like it. This is her debut, though. I think she's been around for a few years and has produced quite a lot of EPs, 12-inch singles and things like that. Style-wise, she's I'd sort of almost described it as 90s synth house. It's very synth-like, but lots of beats. It really, it gets your foot tapping, that's for sure. and it's quite poppy in parts. So there's a really it's amusing at a track called it goes like close bracket na na na, you know, and that's a little bit poppy for my taste, even though it's quite an amusing track. But I quite like it, you know. I like 90s house music, so it's not 80s synth. It's much later than that, and it surprised me. And I'm probably going to watch this. But she, on the weekend, obviously was Glastonbury, and she headlined one of the small stages on one of the nights there. So obviously she's fairly well known, and you know, it's a single LP, 5 tracks on each side, gatefold, and it's very resplendent in what they call a blue and white ink spot, which is quite nice. And like always on the Rough Trade Club thing, there was a bonus CD, and this has got four remixes basically of tracks on there. I've not listened to it. I rarely do. They send them, but I sort of usually ignore them, because by the time I've gone through and listened to everything, I've forgotten about that. So there you go. So there you go. That's my 11 albums in total from June. Lots of old favourites, but you know, at the end there, a couple of new discoveries, which were certainly interesting. So thanks for watching. Cheers.